Hi everybody, welcome to Callyworth College. My name is Tracy White and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the English course that we're going to do, which is literature. We do 3 English courses. We do language and literature combined, we do language and we do literature. So I'll be focusing on the literature today. So first thing, when you come in September, what we will be starting off on is a dystopian genre. You will have 2 exams eventually, and each of those are worth 40% of your marks. We have a dystopian module and we have poetry and play and drama. You will also have coursework element. Now the coursework element is worth 20%, so I'm going to talk about each one of those separately. So the first thing that we do when you come in September is we look at dystopian fiction, and on our board here we've got where people have created their own dystopian worlds. And dystopian worlds that we focus on initially are totalitarian governments where everybody is in control and everybody's conformed and oppressed for some sort of reason. And the first text we look at is George Orwell, 1984. And if you were going to come to us in September, we would expect you to have read this in advance, because we don't go through it chapter by chapter in class. What we'll do is we'll go through it thematically. And again, looking at it from a male perspective and this oppression. And what you've got to remember is most dystopian fictions, they often have an underlying political message, okay? So we start off with this, and then we go on to, in the second year, you will do, and eventually compare and contrast with The Handmaid's Tale, Margaret Atwood. And there's just been a series on. And Handmaid's Tale, again, set in the future this time, but from the female perspective. But again, a totalitarian government. Women have very few rights. Women are objectified, and again it's just looking at things from a male and a female point of view. What you've got to think of in dystopian literature, there is always something where there is maybe an underground rebellion or somebody trying to resist. So we look at our protagonists from that light, and can you ever really resist a government like that? Alongside that, in your exam, you will also get an unseen dystopian piece. So throughout the year, we study different genres and we look at different subgenres. So science fiction, alien invasions, environmentalist issues. So there's all sorts of dystopian fiction you can be reading. And we do encourage wider reading. And I've got a few on the board here and everywhere. That the wider your knowledge, you get to see that the same kind of themes are apparent regardless of which genre it is. So that will be one of your exams. The next exam is, we have The Tempest. So we study The Tempest and Shakespeare play. And again, predominantly based on magic and what it is to be a good ruler and set on an island. But underlying issues of colonisation that we talk about as a more modern audience, that we might look at it from today's point of view. And in your second exam, you will get 2 pieces on this. One will be a close analysis of just an extract of the play, and another will be a broader question, perhaps how does Prospero misuse his power? And you would answer that on the text as a whole. So that's one of the texts. And then we do Rossetti, poetry, 19th century female poet, and A Doll's House, Ibsen. And they're compared and contrasted in the second year for the second part of the exam. Now again, looking maybe at the female perspective and maybe how females in this patriarchal society try to challenge the norms and to challenge powers that be, especially in the role of females, sometimes especially in the role of the fallen woman, where they were outcast and cast aside. And Rossetti herself worked to help these fallen women have a second chance. We look at, from a Norwegian perspective, a female maybe going against traditions within the role of marriage and as a mother. And you've got to remember, for Ibsen's text, the ending was so outrageous for the time that the German actress says she wasn't going to play the part. She wasn't going to do it unless they changed the ending. And Ibsen called it a barbaric outrage. He had to change his ending for anybody. And in the end, she didn't even like that ending, so they went back to the beginning. But a lot of these texts that we study, and even The Tempest, and even 1984 and Handmaid's Tale, they've got those outrageous elements that we think, oh, this could never happen, or this would never happen. And it does, and it can happen. So that's the texts that we study. They're our main texts. For the coursework then, what we do is we have a text called A Streetcar Named Desire. A wonderful play, American play, and set again after World War II, men coming back from the war, and where do they fit in society? And this play really is controversial on a number of ways, and I can't say too much unless I am going to spoil the whole thing. So it's up to you to read this. And you do your coursework on this, one piece of your coursework on this, and it's worth 10% of your marks, and it'll be a 1,000-word essay. Again, it'll maybe be based on a character, and it'll just be on an extract in the play and linking back to wider parts. How is that character being presented, or how is this theme being presented? But another wonderful text. And for your final piece of coursework, we have a pairings of 3 texts, and there's one novel and one set of poems, and you get to choose which one you prefer, and you write a comparative analysis on that for 2,000 words, and that is based again on a theme or a question of that. You get a range. There's a range of questions, but you predominantly get to choose which question you want, and you negotiate that together. So, I mean, the first thing I should have said is, when you do literature, you need to enjoy reading. So if you think this is the course for you, be prepared for a lot of reading. We have a big dystopian booklet, and if you don't like reading, then we have 2 other choices, and you can look onto them and see what other people have to say, and they might be the one for you as well.